Matt, obviously they shot the ball in the first half from three at a crazy pace. How much of that was just them being on for a half, and then how much of that was breakdowns you guys were having defensively?
There's probably about 3 of them that were breakdowns. A couple of them were in transition that they hit. I thought 2 of Payne's and 2 of Gary Harris, one of Gary Harris's, maybe 2, were just really tough shots that they made. Obviously Payne's making about 1 a game. But no, we were obviously trying to stay with them, and we obviously weren't. But it was impressive. I think they showed their ceiling offensively. Because when you bring a guy back like Dawson, an athlete's not even, he's not close to 100%, you can see, but he's out there, but he's still helping them win. And he's experienced, he distributed the basketball, but he gets it back, and they get an offensive rebounder, an athlete like Dawson to go against him. You really see where their ceiling could be from a national standpoint.
Matt, you know your own locker room better than other teams, but
right.
You've said this frequently. Sometimes when you go on the road, there's kind of more of a togetherness, warrior mentality, whatever you call it. And sometimes even with your teams, you played awfully well on the road. Yeah. Do you think maybe what happened in Michigan State tonight?
Well, we played them on the wrong day. We should have played them last Sunday. We wish the Big Ten would have scheduled the game for last Sunday, and Nebraska could have played them tonight. But yeah, it also is when you struggle, and sometimes things are human nature. If you look at Michigan State's team, tied for first place, they watch Michigan get beat. You would think they would play a lot better than they did, and they didn't. It just you're still dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds, but they're also have some experience. You have Appling, you have Adrian Payne, you have some guys that have been through it. Denzel Valentine is more mature as a player. I don't know him personally, but he's more mature as a player than a sophomore. Obviously, Gary Harris is a mature basketball player, and so that was an eye-opener for him, and I think that woke him up, obviously, and we paid for it.
Matt, was the big lineup designed to match up with Payne, or to try to leverage an advantage on the boards?
It was to try to keep A.J. Hammonds away from Adrian Payne, and it wasn't anything like I thought was just going to be brilliant, like I was going to stop him. I was trying to keep A.J. Hammonds out of foul trouble, keep him on Costello, keep him on Ghana. When they went small, not necessarily small, but when they would float Adrian Payne to the 5 and bring Kaminsky in, that's a tough matchup for us. But A.J. got his foul, offensively on Costello, and it was the second foul. It was just an inexperienced move on his part. He fouled Costello and just pushed him down. And you just can't do that. I'm just trying to. He has a difficult time with somebody who can shoot threes and drive the basketball also, as a 7-foot, 270-pound guy. And so we work a lot on handling guys of that nature, but it's still his Achilles defensively.
I know it gets lost in the loss, but the first half that Kendall Stevens had today, and there was that one stretch where he had like 6 points in 10 seconds or something like that, and turned the 2 3-point attempts into 7 points, and he was the reason why that first half might have been worse than it was if not for him.
No question. I thought he played well. I thought he did some good things. He's really played well in practice. He's continued to work hard. I think it's always a telltale for a freshman whether they're playing or not. Kind of they get into mid to late February. Do you keep plugging? Do you keep practicing hard? A lot of guys, you get into those dog days, you start feeling sorry for yourself. Ryan Smith was a kid for us that didn't play as a freshman, and all of a sudden in February you could just see it. He just kept practicing hard. He kept getting better. I said, hey, he's going to be a player for us. And he didn't play that year, but I've said that about the past 2-3 weeks about Kendall about twice a week in practices. Guys either at this time kind of go here or kind of go down, and he's got some pride and he's continued to work, and he's got some physical limitations that I think are going to get knocked out here in the next year and a half. He could really be a good player for us.
Coach Sterling Carter, back here.
Yes.
He hit that first 3-pointer to go up 5-3. Do you think he was due for another repeat performance like Indiana?
I would love for that to happen. He got a couple fouls. He fouled a jump shooter twice and got 2 fouls, and so that's why his minutes kind of got shortened. We have a lot of guards, and when we get into those situations, sometimes my rotation, I change it a lot because I'm just searching, for someone to guard. I'm searching for someone to play. you know, his minutes were less today just because Kendall Stevens played well. I thought Raphael Davis had some good energy, and then Ronnie Johnson did some good things, so his minutes weren't as much, but it really wasn't anything he did.
Coach Gary Harris, I think, shot around 30% past 4 games, obviously tonight, just
Right.
hitting everything. Just what do you see out of him?
Well, I thought he made a couple tough ones to get going. I think anytime you have a great player like Gary Harris, when they get going like that, they're tough to stop. And then it just got contagious for the whole team. Everybody was making them. But no, he's a tough matchup because he's a guy that can attack you in transition. He can hit contested threes. He can put the ball on the floor. He's a good player.
Two more.
Matt, back here in the back.
Yes, go ahead.
Games like this make it any more difficult for you because you come off Saturday,
Right.
a lot of momentum, guys are feeling good about themselves, and then you run into a situation like you did here tonight.
Well, you know, just two different beasts. You know, I thought tonight Michigan State was great. I thought they fed off their three-point shooting. They were able to have that kind of lead, and Adrian Payne, you know, didn't play the whole first half. I think that's anytime you can do that with a guy of the caliber of Payne, it just shows you what their team, really what they've been able to do with all their guys being out, with Brandon Dawson being out, who's just impossible to keep off the glass. Payne's been out. You know, Keith Appling's been out. You got to give them credit, man. Where they are, 11-3 in the league is amazing. They might kick themselves a little bit for that loss other night, but for the most part, they've been pretty good. And things like this can really help you down the road. If you can learn to win when key guys get in foul trouble or key guys get hurt, man, it can really help you once you get, because they've dealt with so much adversity and they've still stayed on top. And, you know, we'll see how they finish, but, you know, they could do it. They could get to a Final Four. They have a really good basketball team. You would think like you could gain some momentum in play, and we just didn't have enough guys defensively tonight, you know, do a good enough job on their guys. We're fouling jump shooters, and we're letting, you know, just made way too many shots, so we have to be better.
Glenn Robinson quoted or credited you as one of his best moments here was an alley-oop pass from you back 20-some years ago. Just talk about it now with the test of time, how good he was as a player here.
Well, from my standpoint, when your best play of your career is a pass, it means you weren't very good. You know, it's very rarely are you around greatness, you know, and he was great. And you would see something about once a week in practice you hadn't seen before. And he just could naturally shoot the basketball and score from all over. He had great instincts. He was athletic. You know, he had an unbelievable pull-up. But it was just one of those guys that was just a scoring machine. And slowly but surely, as he, you know, I think it was difficult for him sitting out that first year. And so the year I played with him, you know, I always tell people he didn't play very well in his first year, and he averaged 25 and 10. And they laugh, and I said, no, you know, he really didn't. And then the next year, you saw the real deal. And but he was special, and you know, he was able to do some things. And you could argue he's the greatest player to play here. I think there's maybe one more, you know, Rick Mount or him, probably the two greatest players to play here. And he's a pretty good player.
One more with Brian.
Matt, I know you said there had been 3 breakdowns. Ray had said a couple times they read the way the screens were defended. For the most part, were you doing, or were your guys doing what they were supposed to do, and Michigan State was countering it?
Yeah, they had a breakdown on the double one time we went under it, and then on the other time we were supposed to stay tight on one. They do a lot of things at different angles, so I could go through, you know, the 5 different ways we guard at 5 different angles, but we'd be here all night. So what happens, and I explained this before, is if you decide to guard it a certain way and they score, I always say it's on me. Okay? When you don't do it, it's on you. We had too many times when it's on you. When you get against good players, you're going to pick how they're going to beat you. But when you guard it one way, and then 2 minutes later you guard it a different way, and it's the same action, you know, it's just inconsistent. When you have those inconsistencies, they're going to get you. There was times tonight our guys guarded it right, and they still scored. And that's dealing with good players. A lot of times when you go against a team of average ability, when you do what we say and you guard it the way we say, they won't score. They simply won't score. But you're dealing with one of the top 10 teams in the country. You know, you have to stay consistent. And then when they do that, you shake their hand, but you keep them in front of you, you keep them off the foul line, and you don't foul a jump shooter. There's just too many of, you know those things. And you could go on and on and on about it. But you just got to tip your hat to Michigan State. I thought they were pretty special tonight. They're going to beat a lot of people shooting, going 17 for 32 from 3.
You have one?